a credit union is run by volunteers, that we have a volunteer board of directors, where a bank has corporators and trustees. If you have a $5 member account, then you are basically an owner of the credit union. You have a right to vote at meetings and so on and so forth. Whereas a bank, you're just a customer. So you actually take ownership of the credit union by becoming a member of the credit union.
Good evening and welcome to the Spencer Board of Selectmen workshop for Monday, August 18th, 2014. It is now 6:05 and we're in the McCourt Social Hall. Everyone can rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great. The first item on our agenda, I think Selectman Stevens would like to speak to the recreational assets restoration of Howe State Park. So I'll give you the floor, Selectman Stevens.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I apologize if this caught the board by surprise. It really is not a full-blown discussion item, but something where I really want to get a sense of the board and maybe look at it in more depth at a workshop meeting this fall. But I had an opportunity to comment on some recent meeting results and a presentation from the Central Mass Regional Planning Committee. And in particular, since the topic was economic development, housing, and the environment, I thought it was a chance to make a point about how rich Spencer is with his recreational assets. And one asset that has been shuttered for some time and which could really feed our economic development as we talk about what we have to work with in our community to build business and activity is Howe State Park and the facility there. So I was certainly not in a position to speak for the board. I just made it known that was an asset that I would like to see restored, that it's kind of we've got a crown of natural assets, and it's kind of a jewel that's missing right now, and it was a chance just to bring that up. And as I thought about it and about my comments, I realized that really what I really should be doing is coming back to the whole board to talk about that whole picture of our recreational assets and what that means for economic development, and not just the state facilities, but of like Howe State Park, but also the protected lands we have, our town's own facilities. I think if the board would approve the idea, I'd like to, I think it'd be a good opportunity to gather a number of people for a discussion here and from brief presentations in the fall, just to talk about how we could, go forward with as we market the town and try and promote economic activity, give us a chance to, highlight some of our own recreational facilities which have gone wanting. If we look at them in a big picture and a total, I think it's really quite impressive. And so I just made those comments in general, which I hope will get noted in the comment section on the report. But I wanted to bring that up before the whole board. I think it's worthy of some discussion, and one of those underplayed set of assets that we have, and with economic development always being on our mind, I thought it was deserving of some attention. So if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, just a sense of the board or other comments.
Right. I mean, personally, this brings to mind when I was there last for Seth Fancher's memorial, and a few people who were there mentioned the park and how it was a nice setting, and it's really not officially open and operating. So I wouldn't be opposed to listening to some ideas on utilization of that area in a better way and bringing it back to life. The rest of the board, does anyone have an issue?
It's a great idea.
Bo, you okay with it?
Well, the state owns it, and the state's the one that does it, and they shut it down. They shut down quite a few other parks around too, because they just cut their budgets back. So
yeah,
I mean, I don't think you're going to get them to, do anything down there, because unless they have some money that nobody knows about, I mean, they're talking about closing some more.
Yeah, so we actually had to go through DCR to do Seth's bench, and it was like, well, if you want our involvement, it's going to cost money. So we basically did it on our own, and with their blessing. But I hear you, so, I mean, that's gonna be a hurdle, but let's, if it's okay, we'll put it on a future workshop in the fall. If there's an obstacle that we have to address, then so be it.
There are friends groups that are out there, supporting, local parks and trails, and also it's a sort of thing where it's going to involve other people probably, making some noise and coming forward to help. But every time I pass there, think of what an asset that used to be widely used, considering the limited opportunities of recreation in Central Mass. I know Quincy. Lake Quinsigman has problems with the water there. It's just and it's just sad to see it sitting there when the need is really quite great in Central Massachusetts. So I realize we may not be opening it right away, but I'd like to get it back on the table for people to comment on.
Okay, so if the administrator could look at the calendar, give us a good date to establish that. And once we get that, we'll get the parties you want involved and have them get prepared for an agenda.
Great.
That meeting.
Okay. Thank you.
Great.
Good.
And also, would you, somebody contact DCR to make sure that we could do something, because it's their park,
Right.
and make sure that we ain't overstepping our boundaries here.
Well, I think that'd be part of the process
Yes.
in terms
Yeah.
of, at what point to bring DCR and see what kind of ideas people have first, and then approach DCR with those.
Okay.
Great.
Good. Thanks.
Thanks, John. Next item on the agenda is the Sugden Block Sale Committee and draft RFP. So, does the committee want to, do you have a quorum tonight? How many folks are on the committee? Is it a quorum?
You're 5. We have 5 out of 7, so.
Okay, so,
Just missing Laura and then the planning board member.
that,
Is that Mary Stillars?
so that being said, should I be on the other side, or?
I don't think it's okay. You can stay where you
Okay.
are. Yeah.
Okay.
Discussion purposes.
So if the committee would come up and give us an update?
Sure, why not?
Oh, everyone's being shy, everyone's saying that no one wants to come up?
Nobody wants to come up.
Or do you want to be the main speaker?
I guess it's me.
Good evening.
Hello. I distributed a draft RFP probably a month and a half ago. It is a draft. The committee's been working for close to a year now, and meeting regularly. We had a public forum late last fall, I believe, early winter, and we put together the draft RFP. I will note, I think that I made the town administrator aware that we need input from town council on this to make sure we have some of the legal language in there as it should be. But in terms, do you want me to just kind of give an overview?
Yeah, maybe high level,
Okay, yeah.
it's quite a,
I mean, we put together an RFP, the main goals in the sale of Sugden Block. We had 3 primary goals that people that respond to the RFP would have to meet, related to economic development, elimination of blight, sort of improving the existing building, and also historic preservation. So those are the 3 main goals of the RFP, and the idea is that since the property currently, it's one lot and it has both the library and the Sugden building, the lot would have to be split, and the front portion would be sold with the Sugden building. We also established a number of, I mean, the RFP includes things, all kinds of background information, history, zoning, parking, etc. But in terms of the RFP, we put together selection criteria. One of the important criteria that the committee members felt was important was preservation of the building exterior and principal architectural features. And then there's a set of 13 sort of detailed comparative evaluation criteria and a score attached to each of those to use during the review of the proposals. One of the questions that came up during the process was ultimately who makes the decision, the Richard Sugden Library Board of Trustees versus the Board of Selectmen. In the draft, frankly, I left both committee names in there. That's an issue for perhaps town council to weigh in and the two boards to work out, but in terms of the draft, that's the way I left the language in there. So, if you have any questions?
I'd like to, first of all, thank the committee for their hard work. They've been meeting for quite a while with limited assistance from your your liaison from the board. This is excellent. I went through it. I'm okay with it. We do have legal issues to discuss as to who would, sign off on the final, on the evaluating the responses to the RFP. So, and we've discussed, we agree with you 100%. That's a legal opinion that we want to make sure we get, so we don't step on anyone's toes and cause any more grief.
I took a look at it, Mr. Chairman. I thought it was well done. Same thing. I like to echo the sentiments from Tony. It was, I think it's a well-drafted document. I looked, just scanning for 30B requirements, looked like you met everything that was in there. So I think there is some question. There's one part of the will that talks about who's in charge of the real estate, which is the library, and then it talks about when you sell the building, it's 2/3 vote, and then the voters can designate who's in charge. And then back in 2008, I looked at the warrant article in 2008. It says in that article that they in charge the selectmen with being the overseer. So I think at the end of the day, if there's some combination of the two, and that there's some joint discussion in terms of what the selection is, I don't think the selectmen would want to do something the library trustees are completely opposed to. I don't think the library trustees want to do something the selectmen were completely opposed to. So as long as whatever the town council says, and if we decide to go with that, as long as there's an open discussion that both boards or group have a somewhat of an equal say in terms of what happens, I think that would be an amenable solution going forward. But I agree. I think it's a great document. But the only question I had was, sometimes when drafting these RFPs, you will see, even though zoning allows a certain use, a committee or a town when drafting an RFP can restrict that. I mean, did you kind of leave it open that would be taken into account during your review of the proposals? Obviously, making sure the use is compatible, but you didn't, from the get-go, say, we're not going to allow certain uses.
No, we did not. We went with the underlying zoning in the district. And as you said, ultimately, I suppose we could take that into consideration with the proposal that comes in, but we didn't place any additional restrictions other than the zoning.
Any other questions or comments from the board?
I have a couple specific questions, Mr. Chairman, and some of them have to do with the plan once we have a final RFP. But one thing that always comes up in connection with the Sugden block, and I'm wondering how that's being handled as we receive inquiries. What exactly are we offering them or saying to them as far as parking is concerned? Are they kind of on their own with the owners of the Price Chopper lot, or when we divide the lots, they're going to be, when we separate the library and the building, will there in fact be spaces that are solely for the Sugden block? What direction are we giving inquiring parties at this point?
Essentially, I mean, there was a lot of discussion about that, both at the public hearing and at all of our committee members. But ultimately, the committee members felt that the overall parking problem downtown was sort of outside the scope of the Sugden Block RFP. I mean, we sort of have some information about the current parking situation as it stands, but we're not going to resolve the downtown parking issues. I mean, we have detailed information in the plan about the impacts of relocating Main Street and description of general parking issues in the area, but beyond that, it's, as I said, sort of beyond the scope, or at least the committee felt that it was beyond the scope of the RFP.
To get people to look at it more seriously, do we have some suggested directions they can go in, whether it's talking, I mean, with the owners of the Price Chopper lot? I mean, there's a kind of an informal agreement that functioning now?
Yeah, there's an informal agreement basically that says, we allow them to take their snow and remove it. And actually, it's an agreement with the Parks and Rec Commission that they are allowed to take their snow and remove it and bring it down to O'Gara Park and store it down there. In exchange for that, in essence, they would not restrict the parking from specifically to that facility, like you may see in other parking areas. So there's nothing written, there's nothing formal. And then my understanding is that's been the practice for as long as folks can remember here in town. There is, some parking spots right behind the back of the building. There's also parking associated with the library. And then there's the public parking spot that's associated with Sovereign Bank. And then there's parking on Main Street. And then there's some pocketed parking areas off of, I think, Wall and Elm. So, however, there is not, say, like 100 spots designated specifically for that building and nothing else. So I think maybe, I wasn't privy to a lot of the parking conversations you have, but maybe the committee felt that it's typical of an urban downtown economic operation where, like you think of Worcester, you think of Boston, people find ways to get there.
I agree. As we went through the public hearing, the conversation went beyond just parking for the Sugden block. It morphed into a parking for the entire town as an issue. So I agree, it's just a larger issue than this RFP can address. Though it is an issue, and one that'll have to be addressed with, future development.
There was some parking analysis that was associated with the downtown study in 2009. And I think what they found was there was ample parking. There's a suitable number of spots from a capacity standpoint, but what they found was, maybe there would be a need for improved signage and maybe some other tools that could maybe assist people with finding the parking that is available. But they did find that I think that was my recollection of the study going back 4 or 5 years now. There was ample parking for the uses that are currently downtown. You may not have 50 spaces right in front of Cormier's or 25 right in front of Whitco that you want to use at any one given time, but there's ample parking to serve the spaces down there, serve the uses down there. So I guess we maybe, through the RFP process, and then that comes up as a question, you could point to that study. It was done by professionals. There was a consultant that was hired to evaluate economic development in the downtown. They looked at everything from rental rates to leakage to other economic factors, and I thought, that pretty much, even though it's just a few years old, that did a pretty good job of summing up what's going on economically downtown.
And I should note the current work being done by CMRPC, the downtown study, part of their scope is to produce a map that shows where parking is, and that's something that we can make available to people that respond.
Okay.
It just seemed that as much as we're asking people to make a serious commitment to our downtown is going to come up, and I think it seems to me that just we need to deal with them as potential as partners in this whole thing. We'd like them to help them find a solution. And anything we could point to would seem to make a stronger case for investing in the building. Another question I had just, and it was answered somewhat with there was a reference to, possibly a payment in lieu of taxes. I think it was in one of the criteria the willingness to, provide payment of lieu of taxes to the town. So I guess that the possibility of it being purchased by some sort of nonprofit entity is very much, that's not been discounted as much as we'd like to see it on the tax rolls. We could see a proposal from a body that would, place it in a nonprofit status, and we'd have to work out some sort of.
That was done, and that was done with MHPI. MHPI, Senior Living and Property, undertook a similar process where there was a committee established, developed an RFP. There was an eventual sale for the development of the property. As part of that, and the town working as a partner in the sale price and the development of that property, a pilot was established. So it's not technically on the tax rolls. It is in terms of DOR, but it's handled through a payment in lieu of taxes every year that's negotiated. So yeah, that is a possibility. I think the committee wanted to leave that open.
Okay. Anybody else?
Anyone else have any questions?
Just something else, Tony?
I wanted to ask the administrator what's our next step and what is the continued involvement of the committee.
Well, once you approve an RFP for advertisement, there's a particular specific advertisement process that you have to go through in accordance with 30B. So we'd have to go through that in terms of advertising in, I believe, Central Register and also in a regional newspaper and things like that. So you'd have to go through that process. You'd then have to allow for, as was discussed in the RFP, time for people who are prospective proposers to submit questions, written questions through the contact person for the town, which would be Michelle. And then she set up the process where she would then post answers to those questions online, website for viewing for anyone that's interested in submitting a proposal. And then once you've reached that deadline, 2 o'clock on a Thursday afternoon, whatever date it is, you would have an opening of those proposals at that time. They become public at that time. When you're dealing with real estate property, which is different than proposals for architectural or planning services, they become public at that point. Then you'd have the committee would then go through the process of reviewing the proposals in conformance with the selection criteria. You have to go and evaluate, and there's a matrix that's in the RFP. And then from that, you would rank them, review them, and have discussion about whether or not to go with the highest ranked firm or go with a proposal that not necessarily was the highest ranked, but gives the town the best fit in terms of like the 3 criteria that they set. That's what an RFP does. It gives you an option to select a project that's the overall best fit for the community, not necessarily the best price. So you go through that process, then make a recommendation to either, whoever is that final say of whoever gets to sign on the dotted line. But I think you'd probably have some follow-up discussion maybe with the proposal, the entity submitting the proposal, and then you'd go from there. You'd go into like a purchase and sale negotiation. But essentially, next step is getting ready for advertising, formal advertising.
Mr. Chairman, on that subject of advertising, does that preclude us from putting a sign on the building even at this stage? Just letting people know and to inquire if they're interested in the building? Is there something we could do that would take advantage of all the traffic there on that building that goes by on Main Street, just to sort of get people talking about it, or just alert people to?
We'd probably check with the Secretary of State's office or Inspector General about what kind of sign. You can't just necessarily just put a for sale sign up there, but maybe some other sign that says, RFP advertised, see town hall or something like that.
Yeah, and we're having them refer to the town hall. It just seems like we waste all that exposure that we get on a daily basis there. And, who knows? We're looking for something creative. You never know what people are thinking as they go by. It might be just perfect for a blank, fill in the blank and might find a fit, just an opportunity, that's all.
Refresh my memory, have we had much input from tenants in that building so far on this process?
Some tenants attended the public forum that we held several months ago. We haven't had additional input from tenants since then, other than when we toured the building. Some of them, they were aware of the tour and that kind of thing.
We want to.
Have we contacted them to see if they're interested, maybe purchasing?
They have been in the past about when we approached them, and I talked to Tony about this earlier. We approached them at one point about establishing like a condo association. But at the end of the day, you have to follow Chapter 30B requirements, which requires a formal advertising. So even if they're interested, we can't simply just negotiate with tenant X. We have to go through this formal process of publicly advertising it, giving an open and fair opportunity for different entities to submit proposals for review by the town. So in no way, shape, or form can we just approach one of them and say, would you like... So they're more than aware of the fact that the town's been looking to sell, and obviously they were invited to the forum. So, as far as any next steps, they're able to submit a proposal just like anybody else could.
Anything else?
One more thing, Mr. Chairman. I've been copied on information, I think some other members of the Board of Selectmen have as well, on the opportunity, given all the devices people carrying around with them everywhere, the broadband possibilities of towers and a tower on that building or on other structures. Is that something that the committee has looked into or has been discussed, or anyone come to present on what the potential is?
Well, there's already lease agreement, I forget which church, there's several lease agreements, I think, with, and the planning board has these files back from when I remember, but there's certain buildings that kind of already have, that capability or a lease agreement with, you know, like cell towers and those types of things. Broadband is a little different, maybe off subject, but, in terms of locating, different things, than having lease agreements on top of that.
Yes.
In terms of sale. You know,
I can honestly say it didn't come up during our committee
No,
meetings.
it's just in terms of, if we're looking at a value there to that, you know, to that property that someone, you know, either makes it more attractive or lets us know, you know, what the potential is, it's,
my experience has been with the other facility, that the people who are looking to sell that type of service aren't looking to own a building and then have 9 tenant spaces to then manage. They're looking for a building already owned and then negotiate a particular lease that they can just piggyback on top of. So you wouldn't have that particular company, just my opinion, you wouldn't have that type of company, X cell service, come in and say, I want to, you know, buy the building and then put a cell tower on top and then manage it and have 9 tenants.
I was thinking more in terms of someone who sees an opportunity and, you know, and sees another revenue stream, you know, something that we might have overlooked or missed. At the same time, they are looking really to, you know, to manage a building, purchase and manage a building too, so. If,
The advertising, the responses to the advertising is the only way to tell, probably. You know, I think that you guys left it open to any any possible proposal based on what's allowed by use. And then you'll see by then in terms of what the market will bear, I guess.
okay, I will, you know, if that hasn't already come to the committee, I'll ask if that could be, you know, forwarded to you, just so that you can, you know, see what the, I mean, I'm not connected to all these devices, I really don't know what the market is, but I know that's where the world is headed, and I might as well take advantage of an opportunity or be alert to, you know, to an asset that, you know, that other people are aware of. Okay, all right.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
Well, if there are no other questions, thank you very much for your service again, and we look forward to continuing down the path of, yes, Carol?
Just a question. Would it be appropriate to send letters to the tenants to let them know at this point that there is an RFP going out? Because I suspect some of them, and perhaps all of them, would not be looking at the central register. So would it be, is that okay to send a letter to the tenants and say that, you know, because this has been a rather long process, so they don't know when things are happening. They probably know something is happening, but not when.
Right, I think so, I agree with you, I think we should do that, but is there any input on that?
It's fine, I'm just looking at the charge, it was talking about, you know, soliciting any concerns with the RFP. Do you want to have any kind of public session to review the RFP before it's advertised? Do you want to have, you know, put it up on the website, have 30 days to review, et cetera, you know, that type of, you know, do you want to post a public meeting, not necessarily a public hearing, but a, you know, public meeting, or a public hearing to have people have comment, and you can invite the tenants specifically to have comment on the RFP before advertising it?
That's what we kind of discussed, having one more opportunity for
Before you
a
advertise.
public hearing, yeah.
Before the final RFP, right?
Right.
So right now we're in draft form. I could submit it to town council for review, and at the same time have him ask to comment in terms of the, you know, the person who's the group, that entity that's entitled with the executing the purchase and sale agreement and the sale. And then in the meantime, schedule a public hearing for September at some point.
Sure, and I would like at the same time a letter going out to the tenants as well, whether it states the same thing, you know.
Do you have an email list that you collected from those that were in attendance that night that you could, or you could just send them an email, or everyone that was on that list even, and just, could we put the draft RFP on the website? And then just email everybody that was in attendance that night and just say, here's an RFP, draft RFP for a comment. If you'd like to submit any comments, please submit them to Michelle.
Yeah, that was one of my questions. I wasn't sure whether we were going to distribute it for public comment before or after town council review, but that's fine. I mean, we can put it out.
I'm thinking we could go ahead and do it now. I mean, it's in pretty good shape. I would say there may be, you know, maybe some few, you know, typical, you know, legalese changes in wording, but other than that, I don't see, in terms of the structure, in terms of
Okay.
what's listed here, I think we could probably move forward with scheduling, you know, getting it on the website. It's a draft form, it's a public document anyway. It's only a draft, just soliciting public comment, and then we'll schedule a public hearing and at the first meeting, first available meeting in September? You wanna do it at the workshop, you wanna do it, trying to think what dates.
Don't we do it at a regular meeting in September? Maybe the third meeting?
All right, just a reminder, we're meeting on Wednesdays, so we have the 10th, the 17th, and the 24th.
I'd like to do it the 24th, give as much time as, if the board is okay.
That's great.
September 24th, we'll have a public hearing on the RFP for Sugden Block. In the meantime, we'll get the document out there, we'll prepare a letter to the tenants and move forward. Anyone else from the committee like to say anything? Well, thanks again for the effort, and let's move forward. Look forward to moving on. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Let's see, we'll discuss real quick.
Just a reminder to everybody that there's a special town meeting scheduled for Thursday night at 7 PM. There's one article, that's to approve the budget for the Spencer East Brookfield Regional School District and the assigned assessments that we have. Essentially, it's just about a level funded budget from last year. So that's one more step in moving forward with finalizing the FY15 budget process. We still have a fall town meeting later in November based on the ballot question that's been set for November 4th, I believe. And typical fall adjustments to the town budget. So this again will just be for the Spencer East Brookfield Regional School District budget. In addition to that, we have the September 9th primary, state primary coming up. There's nothing on that ballot to do with the town. That's only the state primary, so people should be aware of that. We've had some questions through the town clerk's office on whether or not any of this, the town services or other questions are on that ballot, but there are no other questions on that ballot except for the state primary.
Do you happen to know the absentee ballot deadline for that?
I don't off the top of my head.
All right, well, I'd suggest anyone who's interested to, filing an absentee ballot, please contact the town hall, because the dates come quickly. You don't want to miss out.
So Thursday night, 7 PM, special town meeting in the Great Hall regarding Spencer East Brookfield Regional School District budget.
Anything else from the board? Hearing nothing, I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to adjourn.
I have a motion. Second?
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Well, thank you, and we'll see you August 25th?
August 21st, no, August 21st is,
25th.
August 21st is the town meeting.
Okay.
We don't have another selectmen's meeting until September 8th.
And we'll see you.
I'm sorry, September 10th, correct?
September 10th is our next regular business meeting. We'll look forward to seeing you then. We'll be here at McCourt Social Hall at 6 PM. Thank you very much. Good evening.